Hey students, welcome to your second lesson. This is Intro to CS, lesson 2.1 on loops. Hopefully by the end of this lesson you'll understand exactly what a loop is and be able to use it in your programs. So for a quick introduction, we want to introduce the idea that there's multiple ways of writing programs that do the same thing. You guys have all been doing projects. If you've looked at each other's code, I'm sure you've noticed that your code isn't exactly the same, but most of the time you guys are getting all of this right, and all of your code is actually doing the same exact thing. And that's something important. It's something that you should stress, and there's a bunch of reasons why, and we want to get into that in this lesson. So, for example, when you're writing a square, you might turn first, you might move first, or you might put it in a loop. You'll understand by the end of this lesson again. So, why might one program be better than another when they do the same exact same thing? So, take a few seconds, think about it, write it down in your notebooks, and then come back to this video and we'll go over it. Pause right now and then you can play in a few seconds. Hopefully you followed my directions and you're ready to get going. So one of the reasons one program might be better than another, even though they do the same thing, is just speed. One program might be a lot faster than another. And that could be for various reasons. You'll learn that throughout this course and in your further CS education if you keep pursuing it. Another thing is your code can be shorter. That's something that we're going to focus on today. One more reason is readability. Some code might be easier to read than others. And that can be important because in a lot of cases you're working with a bunch of people on a project. So, these are two of the main concepts that we want to talk about in this lesson. Code redundancy, how much code is repeated, and code readability, how easy code is to read and understand. Again, these things are really important. It's easier to mess up code when it's really redundant, it gets really long, and when code is easy to read and understand, it's better for a whole team. When you're working on a project, when you're working on something big in computer science, you have a bunch of people together. It's not just one person coding, and it helps a lot if your code is readable and understandable. So then other people can modify it, change it, and update it to perform new things. In this lesson, we're going to take one approach in making your programs better, making them more readable and less redundant, and that's loops. Loops are basically a type of block that causes other code to run multiple times in succession. There's a few types of loops: the repeat with a number, the forever, and the repeat until loop. The repeat 10 in this case loop will make it so any code that's right in here will be executed 10 times in a row. The forever loop makes it so any code in here just keeps being executed through the whole life of the program. So as soon as you press that flag button to the time you press the stop button, this code can be running. And then the repeat until, this takes a conditional statement, which you'll learn later in this lesson. So for now, let's focus on the repeat and the forever loops. Let's look at Snap for a quick example on how you may use these concepts. So here is a little project, and what you see right here is some code. Take a few seconds and think about what it does. So hopefully you had a few seconds to think about it and you've realized that this will make a square. You guys have done this a few times. I guess it's more of a diamond right now, but that's essentially what it does. But it takes you a few seconds to parse that. You have to go and read it. You have to notice it does these steps 4 times. The 90 degrees form a right angle. But there's a much easier way to do that using one of the loops that you learned about today. So the loop we're going to use is the repeat block. I'm going to repeat this 4 times because I need to draw 4 lines, and I'm going to move 30 steps as you saw above, and I'm going to still turn 90 degrees as you saw. So let's try this, and let's remember to put the pen down. And now it draws a square. It does the exact same thing, but look at how much shorter that code was and how much easier it is to understand. Here's even a bigger example of redundancy. This code actually draws 4 blocks, and you'd have to look at a lot of code in order to understand that. After this lesson, take a few seconds or a few minutes and try making this code and shortening it using repeat blocks. You might even use multiple repeat blocks together. Here's just another example of repeat. What this is going to do is draw a bunch of lines in a row. So you see move 20 steps and then move negative 20 steps after pulling your pen up, and you change y by 5. So you move 20 steps to the right, 20 steps to the left, and then you go downwards by 5. So that's why you're going to draw a bunch of lines in a row. And this one's a little more interesting. You take the pointer, the turtle, the sprite, and it's going to move back and forth across the screen. This goes on forever. See, I don't have to do anything. I'm not touching the screen, and it just keeps on going. You'll use, remember, a little bit later in the course, but that's also another useful loop. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this program, and we'll talk a little bit about the lab. So this lab is going to be a little bit familiar. What you're going to do is take your 1.3, which was your shapes lab, and you're going to redo it, refactor it, and use loops instead of repeated code. So when you saw me changing the square to use a repeat block instead of literally repeating the move and turn lines, I was basically doing what you need to do in this lab. So you're going to do that for the square, the triangle, and etc. And then afterwards, you're actually going to add a couple more shapes. The decagon, which is a 10-sided polygon, and a circle, which might be a little bit tricky, but you guys should try it out and see how it goes. Just think about how much code you would have had to write in order to draw a decagon. Instead, you can collapse it all into like 5 lines, and that's what's important here. So that was the end of this lesson. Hopefully you guys understand loops and know why they'll be useful for you in your future programs. Good luck.